Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to talk about Uncanny X-Men issues 161 to 167. Here we're going to have a pretty long story arc where the X-Men are pretty much at war with the Brood. And a lot of really interesting things go down in these issues, even though this story arc maybe is 2 issues too long. It's super interesting to see how Chris Claremont kept the X-Men in outer space for at least a year and a half. And he built up the Brood as a credible threat, even though they're pretty much xenomorph ripoffs. He really builds up their lore in general. Like, we're going to discover the origin of the Uncanny, these space whales that they have enslaved to become their ships, because the Brood are actually very smart. They're very cunning. So without further ado, let's get into this. Now, in the first issue, we actually have Xavier. He's in a comatose state because of what had happened in the previous story arc where the X-Men encountered the Brood for the first time. These aliens had teamed up with Deathbird in her move to take over the CR Empire, but things went south. Now, Xavier does not suspect that he actually has a Brood embryo within him, and that this Brood, Xavier, is the one that puts together the New Mutants for the first time. He was actually looking for this next generation of mutants because he wanted more host bodies. So what happens in this first issue is that we actually get a flashback because Xavier is in a comatose state. He's dealing with this Brood embryo. And in this flashback story, we actually get the first encounter that Xavier ever had with Magneto. That Magnus was working as a volunteer at this hospital in Israel for Holocaust survivors. Xavier is actually brought in as, I think he's posing as a psychologist or psychiatrist, but the thing is, he's using his telepathic powers to help people deal with their post-traumatic syndrome, to help people overcome the horrors of the war. And the thing is that there he meets for the first time Gabrielle Haler. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but the thing is, further down the line, Xavier is going to have a relationship with Gabrielle. They're going to have a child, Legion, where obviously Xavier is going to be the worst dad ever. That's another story, but the thing is that this hospital is attacked by agents of Hydra. They kidnap Gabrielle because she knows the location of lost Jewish gold. So this is when Xavier and Magneto discover that, respectively, they're mutants. They go out and try to rescue Gabrielle. Also, in this story, obviously, the head of Hydra was Baron Strucker, and Magneto basically just buries him alive. And Strucker is going to have like this major axe to grind, especially against Xavier, and he's going to try to enact his vengeance against the X-Men in a X-Men Alpha Flight miniseries that we got, I think, in the early 90s. So what happens at the end of that flashback issue is that the Brood attack, they kidnap the X-Men. They all have been taken to the Brood's homeworld, and they have infected everyone on the team. So the next issue actually starts off with Wolverine. He awakes on this alien world. The Brood embryo tries to take over his body, but thanks to his healing factor, this is not the case. And for the next couple of issues, Wolverine is going to go hacking and slashing his way through every single Brood he can encounter. It's one of those fantastic Wolverine moments. Also, Fang from the Imperial Guard gets infected. He tries to take down Wolverine in his new Brood form, and obviously he gets totally murked. And that's when Wolverine, for a very short time, he actually steals Fang's costume and uses it. He probably uses that new look for maybe 5 issues. So Wolverine proceeds with this murder fest of aliens. He's able to find his teammates. And we discover that the Brood had also kidnapped Carol Danvers, who was palling around with the X-Men during this time. And they find that her genetic potential is much greater than what she's able to tap into at the moment. Just in case, for those who don't know, Carol Danvers / Miss Marvel had lost her powers to Rogue. So what happens is the Brood try to tap into this potential because they want her to be a better host for them, so she can become a uber powerful queen. But when they do this, they actually activate these new powers, and that's when Carol Danvers actually becomes binary, like her most powerful form. So now Carol's dealing with these newfound powers. She starts just obliterating Brood left and right. but she has become a little bit reckless and even puts the X-Men at danger. I must note they're able to smooth things out. And then we discover that Storm has a brood embryo within her. She actually goes out into space on her own, like she doesn't want to be a danger or liability to her old teammates. It's actually a fantastic standalone issue where Storm is totally willing to go through the ultimate sacrifice for her friends to keep them safe. They really lean into the body horror elements of the transformation into becoming a brood. And she goes out into the vacuum of space to die. And what we discover further down the line is that she's rescued by the Uncanny, these space whales. The ones that I mentioned that were enslaved by the brood to become their ships. Also, the brood had enslaved the predators of the Uncanny, these space sharks that look super cool as fighter ships. But that aside, we get this like fascinating moment where the X-Men finally find Storm because they were dealing with astral projections of her being healed by the Uncanny, and the whole scene, it's actually like fantastic. And then we get this whole situation where Wolverine doesn't know if he's going to kill all of his teammates because they all seem to be infected by a brood embryo. So the X-Men decide to go back to the brood homeworld and do like their last stand, take down the Queen. And in this attack, we get to see for the first time Lockheed, who rescues Kitty Pryde from a group of brood. I've always had a soft spot for that little purple dragon. So at the end of the story, the X-Men are able to destroy the brood queen and stop their embryos from taking over their bodies. Cyclops is like the only one that almost fell off the deep end. Like he was converted into a brood. And it was super cool to see how the brood took advantage of his powers. And luckily, Wolverine did not take advantage of the situation to get rid of Cyclops once and for all. So we're going to leave this video here. I hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time. Bye.